It's here! The day we've all been waiting for has finally arrived, and it's not going to disappoint. Welcome into the channel, my friends. The snow train is rolling down the tracks, as my friend Gerald likes to say. It is the first day of meteorological winter. That's right, it's December the 1st, and it's coming in with a bang, and I've got a feeling there are many more bangs to ring out as we work through the month, and that's where we're going to start the show today with the first bang on the menu, and that is the upcoming winter storm in the Northeast. My name is Jason, my friends. Thank you for stopping by. I'm glad you're here. If you haven't yet joined the team, consider hitting the subscribe button right down below. Give the content a like. We're growing rapidly. Thank you to all the new members. Let me know where you're watching from. If you are a winter weather fan, let me know that in the comment section. Some of you have told me the opposite, that you hate winter weather and you're looking forward to warm. Well, you need to move out west if that is the case, because the cool air is continuing to flow into the east. A lot of times by this time in the winter, as we kick it off, we're chasing a very mild pattern and we're looking for that cold pattern to set in. Well, that's not the case this year, and that's why even if you look out into the long range and see a dearth of winter storms in Fantasyland, don't get too discouraged, because those can pop up right out of nowhere. When you have an active pattern like we do, we've got cold air, those will collide, and certain portions of the country may be favored at different times. But take heart, winter is around the corner. It's actually here now, and we've got winter storms to track. We're going to start here by looking at what's going on in the Northeast. And as I said, if you haven't subscribed, hit the subscribe button and leave a comment. Let me know if there's anything I can pray for you in the comment section, and if you have any questions, let me know. I'll look at all of those, read and respond to every one of them. In the meantime, we've got several areas of winter weather again yet on the menu. Out here in Montana, winter weather advisories. Colorado, the same thing. The Rocky Mountains going to see several inches of snowfall out here. But the big story is what is taking shape in the plains, quickly moving to the east. Going to see a southern system swing across southern tier and get out here into the mid-Atlantic off the coast and develop an area of low pressure that will intensify as it moves to the northeast. Hence all of these winter weather advisories and winter storm watches in the darker blues up here in and around the New England area and interior northeast. Away from the coastal sections is where we're going to see the highest amounts of snow. We're going to take a look at all of that. We're going to start here by looking at kind of the timing of this. So we're looking at 12 a.m. overnight tonight. You see this? We've got snow breaking out in Ohio, western Pennsylvania, up into the Great Lakes, Michigan, as well as that little system slides in and starts to get its act together. Light snow, that is. And as we move it along through the overnight hours, we even got some freezing rain, potentially, and some sleet down here in the parts of West Virginia, even in western sections of Virginia, and possibly in the northern foothills areas of North Carolina. There's going to be enough cold air residually left over from a departing high pressure. We've got a fresh snowpack to the north, and so there's enough refrigeration happening where we got temperatures below freezing at the surface, at least for a time. And so could see some light freezing rain in these areas before things kind of turn over, particularly here in West Virginia and Northern Virginia. Could see a little bit more in the way of ice accrual. But then by the time we get on into toward tomorrow morning, snow is really starting to fly here in Pennsylvania, western West Virginia, and eastern Ohio up into New York. Probably some pockets of moderate snow in here, and it's going to be chilly. The temperatures are going to be below freezing. We'll take a look at those in just a moment. But as we go on through the day, tomorrow, get into the late morning hours, we see a couple of things happen here. Look at this. Roll this back. 9 a.m., a lot of rain going on in Virginia. In northern Maryland, north of D.C., we're looking at a transition zone, narrow transition zone as this system takes shape. This is a Miller A storm, and it's going to get stronger as it moves up the coast. And what does that mean? Well, there's warm water out here. You're going to have an easterly fetch coming off of the Atlantic in the low to mid levels, and that's going to bring in some warm air aloft. And that's why we see right here around Philly, up north of Trenton, and over here into, as we roll this along, you'll see this kind of set up around Boston. You see this rain snow line with the bulk of the snow being back in here into Allentown and Harrisburg and up towards Scranton and into Albany and places like that, Burlington, Concord, and on into Maine and Hartford, Connecticut, places in those areas. This rain snow line is dependent on the track of the storm, and several different models have this tracking just slightly different. And so a little bit farther to the coast or off the shore, a little bit farther inland will make a difference on who sees rain and who sees snow, particularly along this line from northern New Jersey, southern New York State, splitting the difference here in Connecticut up into Massachusetts. And how far that rain snow line gets, again, depends on how close that low tracks and how far that warm nose comes in. And but the bulk of the snow looks to be up here in upstate New York and back over into New Hampshire and Vermont and up into Maine as well. And as we roll this along, looking at tomorrow afternoon, 2 p.m., it's a quick hitter, so it's winding up off the coast. Heavy snow falling in western Massachusetts and here in eastern New York State, and southern Vermont and southern New Hampshire up into southern Maine as well. That's where we're expecting to see the bulk of the snow. Maine, you're looking at some snow as well as we get on into the evening, and all of that will kind of wind down as we head toward the overnight hours, toward midnight tomorrow. So that's the timing on it. And we'll roll this back just a little bit to give you kind of an idea here on temperatures. So as the storm system moves in, this is about 5 a.m. tomorrow morning, should be snowing. If we get on out here toward 5 tomorrow morning, look at this. Look how the temperatures are. We've got below freezing in the dark blue colors here, and we're already seeing some of that warm air advection come in and erode some of the cold air at the surface. We don't have a big high to the west, unfortunately, or I'd be much more enthusiastic about a lot more of fluffy snow. This is going to be a wet snow. There's going to be some high water content in the snow crystals. It's going to limit accumulations in some spots, particularly on and along the track of the storm, or right along that rain snow line, but just to the north of there is where we're going to see our heaviest accums. But as we go through the day tomorrow, 5, 6, 7, we start to get right around and above freezing. Still could be snow falling because the lower levels of the atmosphere may be cold just to the west of that warm nose, but it's going to get up close to freezing in a lot of these areas, Pennsylvania up into the eastern sections here of the mid-Atlantic. Look how those temperatures just hang on to barely around freezing here, according to this model in in and around northern Connecticut and western Massachusetts, and freezing temperatures continue through most of Vermont throughout the duration of the storm in New Hampshire as well, and Maine. So that's what we're looking at, and then cool air comes back in as the winds swing around northerly from the backside of that storm. Here are the 850 millibar temperatures, and you can see as the storm starts to crank up tomorrow morning, get into the morning hours, look at that warm nose, really warm down here in Virginia. So we're not looking at a big winter storm down there. Pennsylvania, you stay clearly in the cool portion of the storm, but that warm nose advances into northern New Jersey, Long Island, New York City, Hartford, Connecticut, and eventually into the Boston area. That's why you're right on the line, Boston, but it looks like you're going to get into you're going to flip to rain at some point and not really pick up all that much snow. And then the low will pull away, everything kind of pulls off the coast, and snow winds down by midnight tomorrow night, and the column crashes kind of on the backside of that. Here's the NAM. NAM really does a good job picking up on the warm nose, and I'm going to roll this back too as we get on in toward the overnight hours. The storm really starts to crank up, and there comes the warming aloft. And you can see that if this will roll forward for me, we'll see what happens. There you go. 8 a.m., 9 a.m. Look at that NAM. That NAM really gets the warm nose in well north into Connecticut, well north of Boston. So we're going to see plenty of opportunity for mixing with rain, changing to rain, and as the storm pulls by. So we're going to have to watch the exact track of this. And if it winds up and that 850 millibar low just stays offshore far enough, you could see more areas here stay snow, but that's a tricky prospect at this point. I expect with no high pressure up here to kind of squash things down. We'll see that kind of work inland. Here's the total snowfall map, and you can see several inches back in here from Pittsburgh all the way over to Allentown, 2 to 4 inches across the state. We get on in here into New York State, we're looking at maybe getting up close to 6 inches, and the central and eastern portion of the state, Vermont, New Hampshire, and south there into southern New Hampshire and southern Vermont, southern New Hampshire, and over into southern and southwestern tip here of Maine up into central South Maine. That's where we're looking at the highest snowfall totals, anywhere from 4 to as much as maybe 10 inches in spots here in these areas. And there's the NAM snowfall. That was the rapid refresh I just showed you. See, people will post these NAMs and be like, oh, it's 15 inches of snow here. That's not going to happen. This snowfall map is always overdone on the NAM. It seems like they give you one good run of big snow totals, but don't get too excited about that. That's probably a little bit overdone here with the NAM. It's going to be a quick hitting system. It's not going to be a fluffy snow until you get kind of north of all of this. And so I'm not looking at 15 inches here in eastern Massachusetts and 10 around Boston. I think that's a little bit silly what the NAM is printing out. So if you see this, take this with caution. Taking a look at a kind of a tour around the official National Weather Service forecasting around the area, looking at Pennsylvania here, all the way from Pittsburgh over to Williamsport and Bloomberg and down over to Allentown. We're looking at 2 to 4 inches. The most of that's going to be kind of on the north and central portion of the state. As we head on over toward Albany, New York, look at this. We're looking at 5 to 6 inches across much of the area. As we get into Vermont, looking at Manchester and up in toward, actually that's New Hampshire. There's Manchester, Vermont, up to Montpelier. And looking at plenty of snow in these areas too. As much as 8 inches could fall. And down here in the New York City National Weather Service forecast area, you see here along the I-95 corridor and back west, look at that. There's where your rain snow line is going to be setting up somewhere in here. So you're going to go from nothing over to 4 inches fairly quickly. And that's how that just is. That's just how it's going to set up this time, unfortunately. If we took a look at the higher end amount, let's say everything came together just right. You still got a rain snow line setting up along the coast, but you could see some higher totals if we got everything to work together just right. So, that's the ceiling. It's got a kind of a higher ceiling on it, but we're not really expecting that to be the case. There's the National Weather Service forecast snowfall totals out of Boston. Could see as much as, look at this, got a traced 8 inches. Well, I think probably we're going to be on the lower end of that here in Boston, but your biggest totals are going to be back up here into western Massachusetts and on up into Vermont, southern New Hampshire as well, where we see a wide range from 4 to 10 inches of snow. Again, it's going to be falling rather fast and coming down quickly and piling up quickly where it stays cold enough. And here is the Gray, Maine National Weather Service forecast office, and there you have it, 8 inches, a big wide swath of 8 inches. Let's just go back here and take a look at the upper echelon. So the upper echelon would be anywhere from 12 to 16 inches through this corridor here. So again, there's a high ceiling on it. There's also a very low ceiling as well, all depending on the track and how quickly it gets its act together. So just know there's a range. We'll keep our eyes on it as we go on out in time. And that is the northeast snow threat. Lots going on and a lot of dynamics at play that can make this go one way or the other. But the best forecast right now is a nice swath of 4 to 6, 8 inches of snow up in just inland from the coast and northwest of the major I-95 cities. So that's what we're looking at. Got your weather IQ question coming up right now. We're going to take a look at a little bit of the rest of the week and see what the next threat looks like and wrap it up with a big sunspot that's turning in toward us. If you like aurora, you may have another chance to see one fairly far south pretty soon based on this. And we'll be right back. And I am right back. That didn't take long, did it? Got your weather IQ question, and hadn't had one of these in a couple of days, but I've got it for you today. So let's see how much you know about clouds. What cloud type is composed almost entirely of ice crystals? All right, if you know the answer to this, type it right down in the comment section. If you don't know it, just wait till the end of the show and I'll let you know. Here are your choices: cirrus, stratus, cumulus, alto nimbus. All right, alto nimbus. All right, if you know the answer, as I said, type it downstairs, and if not, then I'll get it back to you here in a minute. But right now, we're going to take a look at the upcoming week and see what it holds for us. Wrap things up with space weather coming right up. So what do we got going on the rest of the week? Well, here's the GFS. Don't always show the GFS because it is a silly model, particularly out in the long range. Just can't get its act together quite right. But in the near-term range can be a little bit useful. So here's that first storm going by up to the northeast. Got some snow breaking out here in Montana, hence those winter weather advisories up there. So you'll see that light snow kind of sail across into the Rocky Mountains of Colorado, out toward Denver, and then some more light snow with another system working in. Got an active pattern, big 1035 millibar high working out of Canada into the plains. You know what that means? That means cold weather coming back. And look at this, another southern system by the time we head into the weekend. A little area of low pressure potentially could spawn somewhere down here over the southeast. Now, that said, the energy coming in from the south, it looks like it might get squashed a little bit from a system kind of dropping out of the north. As these little pockets of energy kind of move south like this, they can either amplify and make a big storm and come up the coast, or if there's too much interaction with the polar jet out in front of the system, what it does is it compresses the height field and doesn't give these little systems time to amplify. Amplification just means get stronger, pull in a lot more moisture, create a lot more lift, and a lot more precipitation. What you want to do is kind of time these things together so they interact and not oppose each other. And so what's happening is the trends have been for a stronger push of this polar vortex lobe up here in the northeast that would suppress the heights, keep us a little colder, inject more cold air into the pattern, but also squash the system down a little bit, keep it from developing, got more energy coming into the northwest too, bringing some snow out there. So that's what the GFS shows as we get on into the weekend. It was showing a bigger system with more winter weather potential. What does the European show? Well, here's what the European shows. We get on through the week, and there's that big winter storm in the northeast, more snow back into the Intermountain West and Rocky Mountains, and so that's pretty consistent, a little bit of light snow working through the lakes. And what happens by the time we get on into Thursday and Friday? Well, you get a little bit of a reflection of that wave. It's even weaker than the GFS. And so now we've got a big squashing high pressure working through the mid-Atlantic and only a little bit of cloud cover and a couple of light snow and rain showers working through the southeast. So don't give up on this system yet. We're still 5 days away, and many things can change with how things interact. The trends over the last 24 hours have not been all that favorable. But that is what we've got on the docket next. And this wave train will continue to keep rolling down the tracks. More energy is coming in. More cold air is coming in. As a matter of fact, you can see the cold air coming in right here as we go into Tuesday and then into Wednesday. There's that shot of cold air behind the system. Here, look at this big surge of very cold air. We're going to see temperatures up here well below normal, talking maybe 10 or as much as 15 to 25 degrees below normal. And that is cold for this time of year. Southeast warms up quickly on Thursday and then cools back down on Friday into the weekend. Another surge of cold air out of Canada comes in to start the work week, warming up out west under ridging out here, and we'll continue to see an active pattern. And where these meet up, we'll be talking about winter storms, no doubt, and we'll look more at that as we continue to go on down the line. Now, space weather is a concern, and I'm going to show you why right now. All right, what do we see on our X-ray flux chart? Boom, a big X-class solar flare rolling off the sun, and that means business. This one actually took a while to dissipate, and watch what happens on the coronagraph. Look at that big CME blasted off. We'll probably see some effect from that, but fortunately it was headed away from us and will not take the brunt of that here on planet Earth. But there is a big coronal hole. You can see that here. I'll click on it and you can see it. Look at that. That is a coronal hole. The wind stream coming out of that will impact our magnetosphere in a few days. And of course, there I hit the wrong button, and that will potentially put us in minor geomagnetic storm conditions. We could be following on the heels of that with a large solar flare, and I'll show you why. Look at this big sunspot moving in. I erroneously said yesterday this was the big sunspot that produced all those X-class solar flares before. That is not the case. This is a different one, but look at this thing. Big and complex. It might be even be, I think this is even made up of two sunspots, but look how nasty looking that is. You've got all of these charges, magnetic, the polarities, magnetic and positive and negative, all kind of close to each other. This is a recipe for solar flaring, and with big solar flares potentially come big CMEs, big plasma fields ejected from the sun and in our direction as this moves towards center disk. That is something we definitely are going to have to keep our eye on over the next week to see what happens with that. But it is big and ugly, and we are at high risk, I think, of a solar flare as we go on through the course of the week. Here is the earthquake map. Not a lot going on geologically speaking, so we'll just kind of breeze by that. We are in a waxing gibbous phase of the moon, 83.3%, headed toward full moon status later this week. December the 4th will be the cold moon, and it is going to feel like the cold moon for many of us, my friends. And that brings us in to the end of the program and today's answer to the weather IQ question. What cloud type is composed almost entirely of ice crystals? Cirrus, stratus, cumulus, or alto nimbus? And the answer is, as you may have guessed, cirrus. Cirrus are those high wispy clouds way up in the atmosphere, and sometimes they can be cirrostratus, which is just a solid layer of those ice crystally clouds. They're thin, they're wispy. A lot of times the sun penetrates through those, it produces a milky sunshine, and if conditions line up just right, they can shield the moon and produce a ring, a halo around the moon. You see that? That's a wintertime signal for potential snowfall in a few days after. Of course, that's a whether a folklore item, but oftentimes it works out because that type of cloud tends to precede storms. And of course, it's cold in the winter a lot of times. In any event, that is the answer to the IQ question. And now you know about clouds, and now you know the weather. And hope it's been a fun and enjoyable show. Thank you for spending time with me. I'll be back again tomorrow with another video. You can always follow me on X, Real Cold Rain. If anything changes, I will keep you updated there. And I appreciate, again, all the support. So that's it for today. I hope you have a wonderful day. As always, this is Cold Rain reminding you that the weather runs 24/7, but I got you covered right here, right now, 4814. Take care, everybody. Have a great day, and God bless.